Thank you, Presiding Officer, for the time today to move my first members' debate. Less than a year ago, I never thought that as the first woman of colour to be elected to the Scottish Parliament, I would be standing here. And having come from a very modest family background myself, I am well aware of the importance that benefits can have in supporting families at times of unemployment and redundancy. I'd like to put on record my thanks to the research team at the Medical Research Council, Chief Scientist Office, which funds the Social and Public Health Science Unit of the University of Glasgow, based in my constituency of Glasgow Kelvin. The Glasgow University has a long pedigree of multidisciplinary research, developing and applying the latest methods to help us identify mechanisms that can bring about change, develop and assess policies and programmes designed to improve health and reduce inequalities. The motion before you is based on research recently published within the Journal of Social Policy by Drs Marcia Gibson, Serena Patero and Nick Bailey, and I'm hoping that Marcia and Serena will be able to join us in the public gallery very shortly to hear this debate. This research was one of the most comprehensive reviews of the international quantitative research evidence on both the labour market and wider impacts of benefit sanctions. The body of qualitative research has already established that intensified sanctions and conditionality has had important implications for public health and health inequalities. The new scoping review did report positive impacts for employment, but they also reported negative impacts for job quality and stability in the longer term, along with increased transitions to non-employment or economic inactivity. Today, I want to focus on three important issues arising from the study. Firstly, benefit sanctions mask the impact that they have on children and young people through no fault of their own. The Work and Pensions Committee reported in 2018 that children play no part in a failure to comply with conditionality, yet when a sanction is imposed, they feel the effects just as acutely. How can anyone penalise a child due to the consequences of a parent or guardian's actions, over which the child has no control? So it's heartening to see and know that the Scottish Government took a different path when employment services were devolved. Gone were the mandatory schemes and the new Scottish approach of dignity, respect and fairness to improve outcomes. My second issue concerns benefit sanctions and subsequent reduction in welfare payments. They are a false economy, often hiding the true cost to government in increased crime, poorer physical and mental health, and increased need for social care. The wider impact that poverty has on individuals and families and communities can manifest itself, for example, in family breakdown, and sadly, an increase in the number of children entering the care system. Sir Robert Devereux, the former DWP Permanent Secretary, admitted as much when questioned had the reduction of the welfare budget under his watch led to increased the costs of other Whitehall departments, such as Health and Justice. He didn't know. He was only concerned with reducing the DWP spending. So while the DWP was being rather smug at its success in cutting welfare costs, other departments were faced with picking up the pieces and paying heavily for it. And who knows who the true cost to society is? But just think of the huge rise in food banks since benefit sanctioning really took off. My third issue is to request, well, no, actually, it's a demand. The DWP need to give researchers access to data to ensure that there is robust, independent scrutiny of the results of benefit sanctions. How many sanctions have been issued? For how long? What impact have sanctions had on job-searching activities? What were the quality of the jobs? How long did they last? How many took a low-quality job in order to escape this draconian regime? Originally, sanctions could have lasted anything from 6 months to 3 years. Whilst Amber Rudd did reduce the maximum time to 6 months, that's still a longer sentence than some criminal convictions. Presiding Officer, I would draw your attention to the 94 studies that have been reviewed from across the world. Now, what would give us the 95th? For the UK to release appropriate data to allow independent research to be conducted. So today, I have written to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, calling on her department to promptly grant access to anonymised data from the DWP claims and sanctions histories to the research team in Glasgow, so the scope of their inquiry can be completed. And I would encourage my colleagues across the chambers to add their name to the letter, and I'll be issuing that out shortly. Since 2010, the Coalition and successive Conservative governments have claimed that it has been helping people to find and use open government data. Yet, despite numerous requests, freedom of information requests and assurances given to successive work and pensions committees such data would be released, it still isn't available. Presiding Officer, I ask myself, why? What is it that they don't want anyone to find out? Why would you not want robust, independent scrutiny to validate your evidence and confirm your success? In conclusion, this Parliament has debated the impact of benefit sanctions for nearly 10 years now. Despite a Scottish approach, new voluntary employment support services and the new Scottish Child Payment, management of social security support for the unemployed is reserved. Reserved it may be, but the impact of the sanctions has a knock-on effect for the Scottish Government. And it is time that we are open with our data. It is time that the UK Government stepped up to the mark and they were open with their data. Only then can we truly learn from its analysis about what works, what doesn't, and literally who pays for failure. And once again, children bear the brunt of adult decision-making. Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I look forward to contributions in this debate from across the chamber.